everybody, welcome to Morning Glory Farmstead. My name is Lolly and today is all about my GREENSTALK gardens. I'm even wearing my GREENSTALK garden shirt. I love these kind of shirts. They're super comfortable. And as we're heading into the fall and I'm preparing my GREENSTALK gardens for the fall weather and fall planting, I figured this was the perfect shirt to wear. So let's get busy. Let's talk about what I'm going to be doing with my GREENSTALKs today. I have 4 that are ready to be reseeded for the fall. But in order to do that, I've got to give them some TLC and get them ready. Okay, so my GREENSTALK started out as an experiment this past season and it went really well, but I'm going to continue experimenting through the fall season. Most of what I read says that you should replace potting soil or potting mix with each season, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pull everything out of what I have in a separate bucket, mix up some new potting mix, some potting mix from last season that's never been opened, and then also put some worm castings in it. I'm going to mix those 3 things together and then I'm going to add them to the GREENSTALKs that I already have, because as you pull things out, that potting soil level is going to decrease and they're supposed to be filled up to the top of the pockets, okay? And so I'm going to use my new mixture to get them back up to where they're supposed to be at that top line, and then I'm going to reseed them. So in order to make sure that I get most of the roots out, I'm actually going to take these tiers apart one by one and just pull everything out that needs to go. And I've got a table over here to my right, and I'm actually going to take each tier and just place it on the table to save my back, because I have 4 GREENSTALKs, and that's a lot of tiers and pockets to be working on, and I'm not about to bend over the entire time. So I'm going to work smart and put the tiers on the table one at a time, pull everything out, get the soil the way it needs to be, and then I'll put it all back together at the end. I do have some that still have some greens on them, but they're looking a little bleak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those and I'm going to cut those up and give them all to the chickens. So no waste here. A lot of work to do today. Okay, so as I'm pulling these roots out, I'm not going to worry about getting every single thing out, but some of the greens like the kale, they develop really strong root systems and they kind of infiltrate through a lot of the dirt. And so if there's something like that that may choke out my new seedlings, then I definitely want to get that out. But I'm not worried about getting every single piece of the roots out, but most of the big clumps, I do want them to come out. All right, so I've got 3 of the tiers on my working table and it's time to get started pulling up these greens, getting the roots out, and cutting up some veggies for the chickens. When you're actually giving these chickens the greens, you want to make sure that you don't leave the pieces too big because it can actually block their intestines. So if you guys give them greens and things, it's really better if you can kind of break it up because they don't always pull it apart like they're supposed to. And you don't want to ever give them all stems, okay? Because that's not good for their insides either. So I just kind of break it up into some pieces. Oh, they are going to be so happy today. That was not too bad. So you can see some of the roots aren't too big, but the ones like the kale will have really big clumps that get all in the different areas. And so it's really good to pull those huge clumps out before you reseed. So while I'm working on these tiers, my dad is actually helping me put some extra chicken wire up because I got a phone call today from someone who needs to rehome 5 of their chickens, and I have agreed to take them in. So I'm about to have 5 new chickens to add to the group. But because I'm doing that, I've got to introduce them slowly and quarantine them for 3 or 4 weeks just to make sure that they don't have any illness or that they don't get sick or that they don't have a lot of mites and fleas and ticks and things like that. You always want to be careful before you add new chickens to the crew that you already have. I'm just taking out these really big stems here. And you guys, when you're feeding your chickens these greens and things from your gardens, there is such thing as too much. If you give them way too many greens, you can actually cause them to have some stomach problems. Now, I'm okay giving this to my chickens because I have so many of them out there. I know they're not going to get too much. So clumps like this, I don't want in there. Even though I know some things may still grow, I don't want the huge clumps. All right, time to go feed those chickens some of these greens that I've been cutting off of these stems. Okay, so the greens were a hit with the girls, and now it's time to finish getting the roots and the stems out and then start adding my mixture of potting soil. So this one is the kale, and you can see here how much bigger that is, okay? Look at that. This is from the kale, okay? So it's got a bigger root system. I won't be shaking too much of this off and putting too much back in, because you can see clearly that the roots are all the way to the bottom of that pile. So just taking out any big clumps. You want to make sure that it's not too compact so that the roots can get down in there from your new plants. And I am leaving some little root systems in here, just not any of the really big ones. So I'm kind of digging my fingers all the way to the bottom to see if it feels pretty loose. And also, as I loosen it up, that will help for when I put the new potting soil mix in here. That way I'll be able to mix it up really well because it's not going to be so tight. All right, so you guys can see that this is not filled to the top anymore. And there's actually some words inside each of the pockets, and it says fill soil to top, okay? So you don't want to pack it down, but you want to definitely fill it all the way to the top. And the more you water it, the longer it sits, the more it's going to settle down. So if you start it out kind of like this, by the time it settles, it's going to be halfway down in the pocket. So you want to fill it up all the way to the top. And again, remember to make sure that these holes don't have any dirt in them. Okay, so now it's time to get a bucket and start making my new potting mix, which is going to be the potting soil that I never opened from last year, some brand new potting soil, and some new worm castings. And then I'm just going to fill up these tiers to the top rim. Okay guys, so this is what I'm going to be using. This first bag is my organic potting mix from right before summertime, because that's when I planted everything. Then I've got a brand new bag here that I just bought like a week ago of the same organic mix. And then I've got my favorite brand, Simple Bread worm castings that I get. And then my handy dandy tin bucket. All right, so first I'm going to put in some of the new soil. Okay, so I put in some of the new soil, and it's really damp and moist and a lot of clumps in it. So I'm going to break that up before I put some of my other soil in here. All right, so now I'm going to add some of my potting mix that was from the beginning of the summer. Okay, and before I mix it up anymore, I'm going to add some of the worm castings. All right, now I'm going to mix all of this up together. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll get a freebie and there'll actually be a worm in here. And it doesn't have to be mixed up perfectly. I think at some point it'll all kind of mesh together anyway after being in the container and getting watered. All right, so that should be pretty good. And sometimes I do pull out like these big sticks like this. That's a little bit much. Okay, so now I'm going to take this potting mix and I'm going to use it to fill up the tiers all the way to the rim. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to rinse and repeat on all of my other green stalks. Now, I'm going to go ahead and plant some seeds in these two green stalk tiers that I have on the table, and I'm going to show you how I do that before I let you go. I like to water mine first and then put the seeds in so that I don't water my seeds away to some miscellaneous area within the tier. I just bring in my hose that I use for everything else, pull it into the patio, put it on the shower setting, and give it a good spray. When you order your green stalks, I told you in another video, they come with a little booklet full of helpful information, and it's going to tell you which seeds to plant in which ones, like the leaf planter or the original. Because remember I told you the pockets are different. The leaf planters are more shallow and the original ones are a little bit deeper. Sorry, time to wake up, everybody. All right, so what I do is you can stick your finger in there. It'll tell you, you know, to do a hole 1/4 of an inch deep or 1/8 of an inch or whatever it is, depending on the seed. But I'm going to show you what I do real quick. Okay, now, of course, there's multiple ways to do this, and I'm not trying to overcomplicate things, but this is just what I do. I'll let you see the seeds that I'm going to use. Okay, I get my seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom and the Hudson Valley Seed Company. Here's the other one that I'm going to show you. Okay, so I literally just take like some type of spatula or something from the kitchen, and depending on what it tells me as far as how deep, this is what I use. Okay, so you want to stay away from the middle because that's where the watering tray is going to be. But up in the front, if it tells you 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/2 of an inch, whatever it is, you're going to dig that. But if you're using the leaf planter, which is more shallow, and you're planting greens, usually you'll do 3 holes. And they'll tell you to do 3 finger holes, okay? I just take this and I dig a little hole, 2 of them kind of near the front and 1 in the middle, a little bit closer to this line right here. Again, you want to stay away from here because you want it to get sunlight, and that's where the watering tray is going to be, okay? So just dig your little holes right here in the front, and they're really small, and I'm just going to take them and just drop them in there, okay? I'm doing 2 or 3. I think last year, or not last year, but at the beginning of the season, I actually did 2 in each one just to see how they would grow, and they were perfect. And then I just cover them, okay? You don't need to do it too deep. All right, so that's all I do. I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna do my 3 holes, 2 kind of in the front, and 1 in the middle. I'm gonna do my rocky top lettuce, and honestly, those are probably a little bit deep, but I think it'll be okay. And I'm just gonna do a couple seeds in each one, okay? And then cover it back up. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you learned a little bit more about using your GreenStalk vertical planter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.